Now it's my pleasure to invite Tim Magill up to the stage. Tim.
So about 11 years ago, I had the privilege of being an executive director of a kind of unusual nonprofit in Kentucky. We had about 1,000 acres. It was an outdoor adventure center where we had high ropes, canoeing, all kinds of stuff. It was specifically focused on what then, we were kind of at the forefront of what now is considered adventure therapy. It's actually a whole school of thought that particularly helps folks that are trauma affected, folks that are recovering from trauma. One of the most important partnerships we had at that place was with an organization called Refuge for Women. And they're based out of Kentucky and Ohio. You ought to look them up. Check them out on Google because they are doing God's work. They rescue ladies from human trafficking. So they find these folks in a wide variety of different places, and then they get them out of that life and into homes that are now located all across the country in undisclosed locations for obvious reasons. And they have them for about a year-long program with other folks recovering from human trafficking, as well as their therapists, and put them through job training and all kinds of stuff. So one of the cool things about the nonprofit that I ran was we had a partnership with Refuge for Women, and those ladies, as part of their year-long program, would come out to a 4-night, 5-day program, a trauma recovery program with us. And they would stay on site at this beautiful 1,000-acre facility that we had it in kind of the remote area of Kentucky. Katie was in her like young, maybe early to mid-20s when I first met her. She came out with the other ladies from one of the houses with Refuge for Women. And for obvious reasons, she kind of piles out of the van and into this assembly building where we're rostering all the ladies for this week-long program. And probably for obvious reasons, we have our female staff doing the rostering and greeting them. And the guys like me who are on the staff that they would get introduced to throughout the week were kind of hanging back. So we were kind of in the back. So Katie gets out, she brings her stuff in, she gets checked in, gets welcomed by our female staff, and I'm kind of standing in the back, and she's just glaring at me across this assembly. I hadn't met her yet, but for some, I don't know if I like triggered something for her, but it was a look of either hatred or fear or something. I'm not sure, but boy, howdy, she just was glaring at me. And that's okay. You know, you work with trauma-affected populations, you learn to just give them unconditional positive regard and know that, you know, you just trust the process. I didn't know much about her background at that point, but I learned later from her therapist that she was molested by a family member, or several family members actually, as a child. And then that led to really a distorted view of what intimacy looked like and what, you know, love looks like. And as a consequence, her first boyfriend in high school, made her prove her love to him by getting farmed out to other men and boys in the high school. So he was trafficking her very early age. This then led to later in life her getting trafficked by, there's this really sick sexual tourism trade that goes on in the United States that you may or may not know about. It takes many forms, but one of them is a route that goes from about down in Louisville, or no, it goes up to Louisville. It starts in New Orleans, and it goes up to Louisville in May for the Derby in May, the Kentucky Derby, and another route goes off to the other parts of the Triple Crown, and sometimes another route for some of the traffickers goes into Vegas. Well, Katie was part of that, had been trafficked all across the country, and you might even see some of these ladies sometimes in a airport, or when you're traveling, you don't even know that that's going on right before your eyes. So all of this developed for her. Obviously, she had complex developmental trauma, is what they call it, as well as PTSD. And then she also developed what clinically is known as an attachment disorder. It just means that she has a very distorted view of what relationships should really be. And so she had an over-sexualized kind of affect to just about everything. And that could be it really messes with her head in that sexual relations could mean pain, it could mean pleasure, it could mean, in a really weird way, and sometimes control. And so she grew up with this very distorted view of what normal relationships would look like. So let's go back to their arriving. So here she arrives, and she's glaring at me across the assembly building. And for the first few days of this 4-night, 5-day camp that they're there with, we let the ladies on our staff kind of run everything for, again, obvious reasons. And I and other male staff then would be there, and we'd get introduced to them slowly but surely until such time as they could realize that we're friendly and that we're okay and we're not going to harm them. The other guys on our staff seemed to develop a decent rapport with her, but I did not. And she would give me just one-word answers. How are you this morning? Fine. She would never make eye contact with me at all. And again, it's okay. You deal with folks with trauma, you just go with it. 4th day, however, is equine therapy day. And because I was the most certified and the most experienced with equine-assisted psychotherapy, that was my day. From a risk management standpoint, I had to control that day. So that day, the exercise, picture this if you would, a 50-foot round pen made out of about 3-inch thick metal bars. It was a 5-rail fence. A little gate that you could barely walk through with one person and maybe bringing a horse in tow, and the two of you could go in. And this 55, it's actually exactly 55-foot diameter round pen is sitting there waiting for our exercise. And I tell Katie, I invite her to go out in the pasture and pick out a horse and put a halter on him and bring that horse over and come on in to the round pen. Well, she goes out to the pasture and picks out Doc. Doc's just a 16-hand, goofy-looking, I think he's a quarter horse, maybe thoroughbred cross, a big tall guy, big lanky dude. And he's just goofy, like his head's all over the place. He's kind of looking around. Real friendly animal and real sweet, but just goofy, right? So and I find that kind of an interesting thing that, she picked him out, but she halters him, brings him over. I invite her to go into the round pen with old Doc. And they get inside, and we close the gate. The rest of us are outside, and I'm giving instructions from outside the round pen. All the other ladies are watching. So there are counselors and stuff. So I invite her to go ahead and take the halter off of Doc while she's in the middle of the round pen, and boom, he's off to the other side of the pen, and he's dancing around, and he's winning. Why? Because horses are herd animals. And if you don't know you and they don't trust you, then they want to be back with their herd, and it's stressing them out that they're not. So he was looking around for his buddies out in the pasture and winning, and he wasn't giving Katie the time of day. And I thought about that for a minute. That's probably a metaphor for just about every relationship she's had. If she didn't have a physical connection, they bolt. And sure enough, she was standing there, just you could kind of see her posture was just deflated. Now, this exercise in the round pen is for the client to get that horse to pay attention to you and actually, without touching them, without throwing anything at them, without, having a halter on them or anything, the exercise is get that horse to go around the round pen once one direction and then get them to stop and go the other way. But you got to do this without touching them or throwing anything at them. And the way to do this with a horse is you have to what's called congruency. You have to stand up straight. You have to have some confidence. You have to have some resilience. You have to have some fortitude. And likewise, there are a couple of tricks of the trade. I could talk to her about how to posture herself, how to position herself. But the first couple of times, Doc was just blowing right by her. She would try to get him to move, and he was having none of it. He'd just run right by, and you go back to winning and dancing around for his buddies out in the pasture. But pretty quick, after about 20 minutes of doing a dance, she actually could position her body in such a way and got a little bit more confidence that she could stop him and turn him around, and he would go one way around that round pen, and she would stop, go around the other way on that round pen. Now, if you've been around horses, or if you know anything about horses, horses actually speak a language. There's a trainer called Monty Roberts out in California. He actually named the language. It's called Equus. And he wrote a whole book on it. Now, if you watch a horse, or if you know anybody that's a horseman, or if you're a horseman yourself, then you would know that when you get a horse to actually start paying attention to you, particularly in a round pen, as they go around, that ear on the inside will start cocking towards you. And that means, okay, I am willing to renegotiate this relationship. I will actually recognize now that you're kind of a weird-looking animal, but basically horses think in terms of everything's either going to hurt me or they're a weird-looking horse. So at this point, this horse was cocking the ear at her and saying, okay, maybe you're just a weird-looking horse. And that's okay, I'll talk to you now. And pretty soon that other ear would actually come around. And you get two ears locked on you, that means that horse is paying attention to you. Another thing that happened is he lowered his head. He'd come down real low, about on level, if not a little bit below. And that's another sign, if you know horse language, that says, okay, I'm recognizing you not only as now a member of my herd, but somebody I can trust and somebody I can rely on. And the last one is a real good one, and it's licking and chewing. So here he is dancing around this arena, going around. He's got his ears locked on to her. He's got his head down, and he's licking and chewing. To me, this says, oh my Lord, you just changed this whole dynamic. I was so excited. And I'm just like thinking, this is going to be so cool. We got all these metaphors that your counselor can go over with her in therapy and all kinds of cool stuff. And Katie was looking like nothing happened. And that bummed me out because I was excited. I thought this was just a big breakthrough. Now, one of the things you should do as an equine therapy facilitator, what you should never do, this is like the cardinal sin, is never turn your back on your client. But I did. Shame on me. Because I was so disappointed that she was getting nothing out of this. When I was so excited about this thing, I had to hide my shame, and I didn't want to put that on her. So I said, Kitty, great job. This is wonderful. I try to stay positive. Why don't you go ahead, halter him up, we're finished with this session, and bring him on out. And as I was saying that, I turned away because I didn't want her to see the disappointment on my face. So I started walking away as she was haltering, or I thought she was. And I hear sobbing behind me. So I turned right around pretty fast. And that dumb, goofy old horse had come in and buried his head in her chest. And she was holding on for dear life and crying between his ears. We sat there for a minute in dumb silence. And after an appropriate amount of time, I invited her, go ahead, why don't you halter him up and bring him on out. Everybody else was dead silent. As she brought him out, she paused for a minute at the gate while I was standing there. She still didn't make eye contact with me. She just looked down at the ground, and she said, this is the first time with a male in my life that I wasn't a sexual plaything, I wasn't a punching bag, or I wasn't a paycheck. She walked out. Didn't see Katie much after that. The rest of the crew kind of took care of the rest of the week. And unfortunately, in that setting, I didn't really have a lot of contact with our clients after. I heard she was doing well, but fast forward 2 years. I'm in Ohio at a swanky kind of hotel in this big cavernous area, and it was Refuge for Women. We was having a fundraising gala. So it was a big gala with big donors and stuff like that, so I was there to support them. I dressed up in a tuxedo. That's a rare occasion for me. So I'm sitting there, and up walks this woman, and she's just stunning. And I'm not just saying because she was beautiful, she was. But she just had a self-possession that I had not seen before, and a warmth that just kind of exuded. She comes walking up to my table, and she stands in front of me, and she puts her hands on her hips and looks at me with kind of a weird smile and almost daring me not to recognize her. It was Katie. Hadn't seen her for 2 years. Now I'm fumbling around spilling champagne on myself and all kinds of stuff. They're jumping up to say hello. And before I get that chance, she reaches around and she puts her arms around my neck. She whispers in my ear, "I remember that day with your horses. Those horses saved me." And then she was gone. Thank you.
I'm so riled. I've got to introduce you now. Look, what a beautiful story, huh? So Arizona has been part of Tim Magill's story since childhood, when he spent his days exploring in the mountains and deserts. The love of the outdoors shaped a career devoted to helping others, from leading adventure programs for at-risk youth to supporting survivors of human trafficking and veterans recovering from PTSD. In a significant turn today, Tim serves as the financial business manager for the Charlotte Hall Museum. So if you go over there, he's there. He and his wife of more than 40 years live in Prescott Valley, where they share their lives with their daughter, 4 horses, and a rescue dog named Rosie. The song most likely to get Tim on the dance floor. As a former drummer, I might have rhythm, but I do not dance, ever. The biggest misconception people have about Tim is that he's extroverted. He puts on a good front to get by in public, but it's just a show. Tim claims he's actually not that personable or social. He said, just ask his wife. The mountains are his place. Too many pesky humans congregate at the beach.